I guess we'll get started. We're 4 minutes after. We've got some more people joining us. So good morning, everyone. We got Troy. Troy, it's time for our morning. Where in the world is Troy Boss? Where are you at? Are you in the country still? Ocala. So last week was St. Cloud, but you're back in the country. You're in Ocala this time. That's good to know. So yesterday you were in Gainesville. You're all over the place. And you, in between Gainesville, Lakeland, and Orlando, you still managed to get a house under contract. So congratulations. That's some serious hustle. I also want to give a shout out to Clara. You know, I was watching a Mike Ferry video the other day, and you know, the guy's brilliant. And he made a comment about no matter how good a coach is, no matter how good a brokerage and the training is, at the end of the day, everyone is an independent contractor. And you're going to do what you want to do, regardless of what the script says, right? And if everybody just followed the script, they would be so much more successful. And I'm going to really start touting Clara and her decision this month to switch from just kind of doing it to doing the script and being religious about it. Since January 3rd, 4th, when she came to us and came to the office and said, I'm coming here every day. I'm going to treat this like a job. And she's here by 9 o'clock every morning, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays by 8. And then she's usually here till 6:30 at night. She has active pipeline, active approved buyers or under contract, $86,738 in commission pipeline. So if everything comes to fruition, everybody goes under contract, and I think there's 3 under contract now of that, you know, she's set to make more than she probably made last year in the first 2.5 months of this year. So when you follow the script, when you do the behaviors and you build the habits and you make the connections, and, you know, you pick up this little thing here and you actually call ear to ear to customers, you actually get out and get in front of them. That is when you can start making some serious money in this business. But you actually have to do it. You have to take the excuses and put them away and just focus on doing what you got to do and not getting discouraged. So, but that's that. Don't forget, we've been doing the Monday, Wednesday, Friday Power Hour in the mornings. Thanks to on the call, Joellen has been coming. Joe's been here for a couple of them. Who else has been here? Angelin's been coming to them. So Rose, there's Rose up there. It's like the Brady Bunch on my screen. I love it. You know, we've had some great, Robert Gordon, we've had some great mornings, right? And I've been feeding you too, giving you donuts. So I've got to get you awake at 8 o'clock in the morning. But thank you to those that have been coming. And if you haven't been coming, you need to. We're going over scripts for expires, for FSBOs, working on your sphere. And we're also going to start making phone calls too, as people get, you know, more and more comfortable with the scripts. And, you know, I go back to, if you ever really want to see something cool, go watch some documentaries on the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds. You know, the Blue Angels, when they're flying, the commander, the lead pilot, is the one talking the entire time. And he's giving really slow, monotonous commands, roll right, all these commands. Their flight may last, you know, 10 minutes when they're doing an air show, but they spend, 10x more time in a room, eyes closed, with the commander running those commands over and over again, and then visualizing the flight and what they're going to be doing every step of the way. You have to do the same thing. You can't go into a listing not having practiced your listing, you know, appointment script. You have follow the steps, follow the process. And if you do that, you're going to be successful. So that is my soapbox for the morning. And I'm going to kind of get our friend, Mr. Jason, to chime in here, because, you know, as we've had some other guests, we've had Nick Bailey, Kara, Samantha, David Knox. We're going to start bringing in some more guests this year. So we've got Jason, our amazing brand ambassador. We have his counterpart down from South Florida, Jody, who will be joining us next week. She's here on note. Yeah, she's still here. She'll be joining us next week. And then we also have Jerry Sabulski, something like that. He's coming. He is amazing. He'll be joining us at the end of February. He is a newly named Centurion again this year. So he posted about his new Centurion Award. But I want to bring these other folks in so you hear from other people about different topics, and, you know, hopefully you can walk away with some great learning. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Jason now, and he's got his his topic he's going to share with you this morning. So get your pens, your papers out. Get ready to ask him questions. Everybody has to ask at least 5 questions of Jason. They must be multi-part questions as well because Jason loves those. So good morning, Jason.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks a lot, Kevin, and thanks for having me back on Zoom. This is very cool and very nice of you guys to let me talk for a few minutes about one of my favorite things, which is where business comes from and how to generate business. So you've heard me before, probably. I see a few new faces, and I met a couple this morning. So hello, my new friends. But what I say a lot of times, you hear me all the time, is all business comes from one thing, and that's conversation. All business comes from conversation, especially true in our profession, in a service profession. So with that in mind, that's the first principle, and starting a new business and doing what you guys do on a daily basis, developing those habits. If you keep that particular principle in mind, you can do a lot of things with that. So what I wanted to talk about today is how to make the best use of your time in developing those conversations, finding those conversations. And what I've done was go to the data. So there is a report that comes out every year, I think every year or two by NAR, and it's a 150-page report called The Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. Have you guys seen that before? I'm guessing Kevin talks about that and pulls that. So
we've shared it before. A lot of the stats that we share, like in our listing presentation, like where buyers, how buyers find their house and stuff like that, comes from that report.
Right, exactly. So it's a really good source of data, and what we're trying to do is use that data to find your conversations, make better use of your time, for one, and have more productive conversations, leading to more appointments, and make your business more efficient. So you can grow it, and then you can do other things at the same time and have a nice work-life balance. So I think the data helps. And it helps you because if you know the first principle, all business comes from conversations, then you've got to identify your target prospect because there's all different kinds of people. And to identify your target prospect, let's take one step back and kind of look at your own strengths and weaknesses. Where is your network? Where is your sphere of influence? Is it concentrated in one kind of organization or type of person or environment? And that's what you're trying to find, so you can find the conversations, right? So I do think it's a good idea to kind of take a step back, especially because you're hearing from all different kinds of people. If you're getting blogs and you're listening to all these business coaches and all of these people saying different things, what you need to do for sale by owners, expireds, organizations, sphere of influence, all these kinds of things, internet, websites. Take a step back and say, what am I good at? Because you don't have to do it all. You can do one thing really well, and you're going to grow an awesome business. I tell the example of my mom. She's still doing real estate, still selling. Hundreds of thousands. She makes a bunch of money every year, and a lot more now than she used to be when she was a broker, actually. So, and she developed her whole business, her whole career was based on her Rotary Club. And it still is today, from the referrals and the business she generates from her Rotary Club. So anyway, that's her knowing what she's good at, where her sphere is, where her best conversations are going to take place. So let me get to the data. First one I picked out, let me see. I don't know if you can see this, but I wrote down some note cards. How many sellers use an agent versus a for sale by owner? The data says 91% use an agent, and only 7% are using are selling it themselves. So that's a good stat to keep in mind, right? That gives us some confidence right off the bat that home sellers need us, and they continue to do so. In fact, that stat, I believe that stat has actually gone in our favor the last 10 years. for a while there in the early 2000s for sale by owner, there was Fizbo.com, and for sale by owners were giving us some competition, but that stat has actually gone in our favor over the years. So how do sellers find a listing agent? I think this is an important one. How do sellers find a listing agent? So there's a lot of possibilities there, but the biggest one is Sphere, right? And referrals from your Sphere. What is that? 39%. 39% of all listings sold came from the agent Sphere or referrals from the Sphere. 24% came from prior customers. So between those two groups, you have 63% of all listings sold in 2018 came from Sphere or referrals from your Sphere. So that tells you something, right? That's a huge source of listing business right there. That's where the concentration is. So if you're good at that, that's where you want to stick to. That's going to be your bread and butter. Like my mom's example. That's what she does. That's Sphere and referrals from her Sphere 100%. She could care less about FSBOs, expireds, internet leads, website, nothing. All from her Sphere and growing her Sphere and developing it and cultivating it and nurturing it, right?
Hey, Jason, one thing I'd add to that is, you know, a lot of our agents are new, so you don't have a lot of, you know, or maybe you haven't even have a listing. Prior customers are also your prior buyers or renters, right? Because if they have a even if they weren't able to find the home, if they have a prior, you know, business experience with you, they are more likely to refer you. Even if they were a buyer, they may now know someone who's trying to sell. So don't just think of it, I don't have prior listing customers. It can come from any type of customer.
It sure can. And we're going to get to a stat about why sellers select us as real estate agents in a second. That kind of goes hand in hand with that. But, you know, so if you're new to the area, you might be younger, you haven't developed a Sphere like some of us have, then you might need to start in one of these other categories. First of all, the yard sign is important. Okay, so 6% yard sign, that's a good one. That's number 3 on the list. And what that tells us is it's neighbors of the listing, right? So when you put a sign in the yard, the neighbors are seeing that yard sign, and you are very likely to win new listings in the same neighborhood because of that yard sign. But only if you work at it. So only if you go from house to house, invite them to your open houses, only if your seller customer is being an advocate for you, only if you're asking your customer to let you know if they hear of anybody else who's ready to sell their house. You have to work it in order to, you know, really leverage that yard sign to generate new business. 4% comes from websites. All right. 4% from cold calling. That's your for sale by owners and expireds. 3% from other agent referrals. So developing relationships with agents in other towns, other Century 21s, and you know, you might have a niche market. You might do luxury, and you might get a referral from somebody who's not so much luxury, or vice versa, or whatever. So agent referrals. 2% direct mail, and the lowly 1% from print ads. Still on the list, still on the board, print advertisement. So this tells a story, doesn't it, about, you know, where the opportunities are. And if you align the opportunities and the data with your own strengths, I think you can make a lot of progress that way and spend your time more wisely. Any questions on that particular statistic?
I think one of the things to point out, it's really important, I put in the chat, is we have the referral group on Workplace. I think there's like 12,000 members. So Workplace is only US based right now. Unfortunately, that's not a Century 21 limitation. That is a Facebook limitation. But I've built some great relationships through Workplace. There are 3 referrals right now in our office from one office up in the Northeast, and we have another one in our office from Century 21 down in Venice. And then we also just sent 2 down to a contact that I met through Workplace at Century 21 Yarlix, who's the guy who runs that group. So build that. There's money to be made by getting on Workplace and making sure that you're known and getting your name out there. So take advantage of that, because gold to gold referrals are amazing.
That's right. And also, so if your sphere is small in Orlando because maybe you just moved into town or whatever, you may have a bigger sphere somewhere else. So tap into that. We're global now, right? Especially Century 21 with the brand behind you. You know, buyers are coming here, and I've got some more statistics on where buyers are coming from in Florida in a second as well. Next statistic, how many agents do sellers interview? How many agents do sellers interview? So top answer, 1. 75% of sellers only interview 1 agent for their listing. 13% 2, and only 8% 3. Interesting, right? That's going to tie into the next piece of data. What is the most important factor in selecting a listing agent? What is the most important factor in selecting a listing agent? 61% say trust and rapport. And actually, if you go to the report, this is kind of broken down into 3 subcategories. I lumped them all into one that basically relate to trust and rapport. 61% versus local knowledge. You might think that might be a little higher, 13%. 4% personality, 4% brand, and 4% commission. So I think, honestly, I think that tells a story with the last card I had. How many agents do sellers interview? Most of them interview 1. I think that's because most, and it goes back to the other piece of data, which is most listings come from your sphere of influence and referrals. I think all 3 of these are telling a story that is because they're hiring people that they trust, and they're hiring their friends and family and people that they work with already in other areas or whatever. Then that ties into that the reason that they're doing that is because they already trust you, right? So you have such an advantage with your sphere and referrals from your sphere because they know who you are and already trust you, versus someone in the market who might have a bigger name in real estate, who might have a reputation for local knowledge or whatever, but if they trust you first, they're going to give you the listing. Does that make sense? So in other words, if you're reaching out to the people that you know, your sphere of influence, you've got a really good chance of winning the listings, even if you're new in the industry. What do you think about that? Any comments, you guys?
Some great information, man. Great information. Especially the commission one, right? Because sometimes you'll hear, well, I got to drop my commission. And commission is, if the seller is asking you to lower your commission, it's because you haven't built the value and that trust and that rapport. If they trust you, if they like you, and you've built your value, commission will never be an issue.
Mm-hmm. And it should give you some confidence to stick to your commission. With a smile, no, I'm sorry, that's my rate.
We get the results we get because of what we do, right? When we start to chip away at that, we don't change our results. Well, when we start to chip away at that, we change our results, sorry.
So I've got a couple more here. Now this is on the buyer side. So now you've got the listing. What do you do with it? Where do you focus your resources, your time, your energy, and your money in trying to sell the listing? So question is, where do buyers find their homes? Where do buyers find their homes? We know the number one answer, right? Does everybody know that? Internet? 50% on the internet? I thought it would be higher than that. 50% on the internet, 33% from their agent. That's a good sign, right? The value of the agent as a buyer's agent showing properties is still there, 33%. 7% from the yard sign, so driving by. 7% from friends and relatives. 2% directly from the seller. And the lowly print ad again is still working at 1%. All right, so that's where do buyers find their homes.
You know, one thing too, that yard sign stat, if you read down the data more, it's actually yard sign and open houses combined.
I did that, right. See,
so it's even worse for the yard sign.
Right, for the standard yard sign. I did combine the yard sign and the open house sign. They were distinguished in the study, but both were at like 4% and 3%. So that tells you a little bit about where to spend your time. This might be my favorite one. Where are buyers coming from in Florida specifically? So there's another study that comes out. I think it's every 2 years. This one's a joint study between FAR and NAR about international real estate business. And so we get some stats from there. Where are buyers coming from in Florida? 79% are coming from the US, either from Florida or other states. That's domestic business. 21% of buyers in Florida are international. That's a big number. 1 out of every 5 transactions has a foreign buyer. That's giant. Does that surprise anybody? Sort of. Not so much anymore, right? But that's a big number. We have to have that in our minds.
Thank God we are with a global brand that's in over 80 countries around the world.
That's right.
Work the referrals.
Mm-hmm. We have an agent, Christine in Celebration, who's hooked up with our Russian counterparts in Century 21, and she's killing it right now. She met them in March at the 121 conference and began a relationship with them. And they're exchanging ideas, and she's doing video stuff for them, and it's been awesome.
Jason, is she from Russia? Does she have a Russian heritage?
No, absolutely not. No.
Good. Okay, that's great to know.
Mm-hmm. So it does break down the 21% that are foreign buyers. We've got a breakdown here. 34% are from Latin, South America, and the Caribbean. So that's the biggest source. 23% from Europe, 22% from Canada, 10% from Asia and Oceania, which is Australia and the islands, and 1% from Africa. So 1 out of every 5 buyers is coming from one of those places. Those are all my statistics I have for you this morning. I hope they paint a little bit of a picture and get you thinking about, where you should be spending your time. Maybe reevaluate a little bit your time, your money, your resources on winning new listings and what to do with those listings once you have them.
So Jason, I want to ask you, like, your background is unique in the fact that you had a family-owned brokerage. Your mom still practices real estate, so you have some practical experience. How often does would your mom or you go into a listing, and let's just say you're trying to get X percent and the competitor's trying to get a percent lower, that your mom would choose to walk away from the listing or cut commission to just get the deal? What do you think is a better strategy?
You might not like the answer to this. My mom and I always had some creative tension about this question. She gives a lot away. So very rarely, and she's in the luxury market, so it's a little bit different. But very rarely does she take a 6% listing.
That's true in the higher end market.
In the higher market, and it is a different market, and there is a different supply and demand there.
Yep.
Dynamic that's going there, right? Is that still the case in the higher end market?
Yeah, you're definitely seeing more of a 5% is more of a norm, if you will, in that luxury space. You know, once you get above 750. But one of the things that surprises me as I look at the MLS, you obviously all know that it's unethical to choose the homes you're going to show a customer based on the cooperating commission. But at time and time again, when I look at the MLS statistics and look at the solds, you know, in scale, I just ran the numbers in Lake County, for example. A 3.5% co-broke, all the solds combined, sold for 99% list price sell price ratio. At 97% for 3%, and 2.5% for down like 96 or 94% for each one. So it's in the days on market are typically longer for the lower commission than they are the higher ones. So it's clear that agents are choosing to show, right, even if it's unethical, those higher commission splits. I'm a big proponent of, you have value. You know, you're coming to the table and you are Century 21, right? And if you build it right, you shouldn't have to give it away. I mean, I would rather walk away from a listing and build my value, right, than take a lower listing.
Now, from my perspective, Kevin, I looked at every listing different. And this is a little bit unique because I've had a lot of conversations with agents over the years who didn't really look at it this way, but I see every listing as a unique transaction, and which to me deserves an analysis of the commission. So for instance, luxury, $1 million and above, there may be a different supply and demand with agents going on there, a different dynamic. There's also a lot more hands-on work that has to be done. Every showing is by appointment in that higher end price range. There are no lock boxes in the 2 million and up range for the most part, unless it's vacant or whatever. But so that's different. I think if you take a listing that has a lockbox versus not having a lockbox, which is appointment only, I think that's a huge difference. I would justify adjusting my commission based on that factor alone. And there may be other factors. So the marketability might be one. Where is it? Where's maybe potential for generating new business? Is it on a main street where the yard sign is going to have a huge impact in possibly generating more business, more listings for you? That particular one is it could be seen as kind of like a loss leader, where you might take it at a discount just so you can generate more business in that neighborhood. So I do think that, the values there, on the other hand, there's justifications for discounts. There's also justifications for raising your commission. So we've had conversations in the past where 6% might not be enough. Vacant land, for instance, 7%, over 6% is more of a norm in vacant land and some commercial transactions. So to me, I look at every listing as a unique transaction with different circumstances that deserve a different analysis for the commission.
Good point. Good point. What other advice do you have for, I've asked this question of other folks too that have joined us. We have a lot of new agents. What would be your number one biggest piece of advice that you would give someone new to the business who's really just trying to get their business off the ground, and maybe we have several that are still dual career and they're trying to get away from that. So what would be your advice for them?
I'm going to have to pull a book off the shelf, my friend. Actually, it's over here because I'm going to make my wife read it. The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. So the contents of this book are, the main idea is we become what we think about the most. So I like to keep things real simple, Kevin. I like to think about principles versus strategies. I'm a principle guy. And big picture. So to me, the most important thing, the piece of advice I could give anybody in this career or anywhere else, is we become what we think about the most.
Very cool. Well, who has questions for Jason? Let's open it up to the floor. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand and I'll unmute for you. If you're not on video, you're going to do it yourself. Or chat and I'll undo it for you. Come on, no questions? No one? Really? I'm gonna start calling on people. All right, Angelin, thank you.
Yeah. Jason, I was just curious, do you live in Florida? Where do you live?
I live right up the street from you guys, actually. I live on the north side of downtown.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
Yeah.
I didn't even think you lived in Florida. One of my main questions you asked right off the bat was, how do you parse through all the advice, all the tools? That's one thing I have that happens with me. I get so overwhelmed with everything that is available. And you just hit the nail on the head by saying, just do what you do best. Now I'm trying to figure that out, but still now I have something to focus on. And another thing was, what do you think is an icebreaker conversation to have with somebody when they say, oh, I already picked, my friend, or we have a friend of the family, and here I am, a friend of the family, and they've picked somebody else. And of course, it's an agent that's been around a lot longer. So what is a good comeback that you think for that? I mean, I know I've got to still get my sphere all built up, but I just didn't know if there was a good conversation to overcome being shut down, like, oh yeah, well, we picked so-and-so, it's just a friend of the family.
You know what? I'm not really great about scripts. And I will, truth be told, I've sold real estate, but I've almost always been on the management side. So scripts are not my forte. I would love to work with you guys and get stronger on scripts. What I would say is I would treat it like the advice I give on a for sale by owner, or at least this would be one approach. We're just continue to look for ways to give value. So when you call it for sale by owner, most likely you're not gonna get the listing on the first try. It's going to be a process, and maybe you guys have heard about this process for how to convert for sale by owners. It's typically a process, and it typically takes weeks and weeks to finally culminate in winning the listing. And usually what you're trying to do is look for opportunities to have conversations and provide value to the prospect. So to me, it's kind of the same thing. It's a friend. You don't want to step on that relationship that they have. You don't want to offend them by saying I'm better than your friend or whatever. I would just be constantly looking for opportunities to show my value to them, which would differentiate, hopefully, from the person that they're thinking about hiring.
Cool. Thank you.
Good question. Jason, Brad chatted in. Can you give 3 or 4 ways you've increased your sphere over the years, or any advice you would have to increase your sphere?
Who is that from, Brad?
Bradley Moore, Mr. Lister.
Sphere building, Brad. Well, okay, so it goes back to the all business comes from conversation principle, right? So we're looking for ways to generate more conversations. And then we're looking for ways to have more conversations with the people that we already know. So there's lots of ways to do it. And again, to me, it goes back to your strengths. So what are your strengths, Brad? Where are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with people out at events? Are you comfortable at your computer doing social media? To me, it's about your strengths, and then working with those strengths to figure out some strategies to grow your business, to grow your sphere. Can I ask Brad a question? What does he think his strengths are?
Brad, did you hear that? I'll mute you. I think I can unmute you. Yeah, Brad, can you hear us? Brad. All right, maybe he doesn't have. I've unmuted you, Brad. Oh, he doesn't have a mic on his computer. Okay, no problem. Well, maybe you can chat in that question, the answer to the question, what do you think your greatest strengths are when it comes to that? And I'll also add in, one of the things, Jason, that was given advice to me, and I think it's a great way, is we all have things that we love to do, our hobbies and things like that. There's a great website called meetup.com where you can find other or groups near you with similar interests. So if you like biking or dogs or pottery, or, I mean, I'm just looking on the website right now. There is tons. You can break it up by category: outdoors, adventure, tech, family, health, photography, you name it, learning new languages, writing. So Matt, if you have something that you like to do, what a better way is to go do what you love and meet new people to build your sphere. It just seems like because a lot of times the things that we need to do to build our business, we may not like. It may not be fun. We may not like cold calling expireds or things like that. But if we can find ways to build our sphere and build our network doing things that we already love to do, how awesome is that? So, and he responded, I love to talk with new people, but always looking for other personal experiences. It's fun to hear stories.
So I'll tell you, for me, if I was in your shoes right now, for me, I would be working the soccer moms and dads. My kids play soccer. We're at the soccer field almost every day. And there are so many opportunities to build relationships there. That's what I would be doing. On the more techie side, I would be using social media, because social media absolutely is the fastest way to build relationships and to have conversations.
Yeah, there's Jordan Dennis with Blue Marlin up in the Panhandle. I love him. He's really built that strong network. Obviously, he's former military, huge military presence up there, so he's building that audience. But there's a couple of Facebook groups that he belongs to, and one of them's called Let's Talk Destin. And you're not supposed to promote in there, but he posts a lot, just general, like to get people talking. One of my favorite ones was, a couple months back when there was a lot of this posting going on Facebook about, if you get another friend request from someone like my name, don't accept it. So he goes in there and posts, if you get a request from John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, don't accept it. His name is my name too. And the thread of comments that went on with that was ridiculous. But here is Jordan Dennis out there getting his name in the local community and engaging people in conversation. So do that as well. We have tons of Facebook groups here in Orlando. Just get involved in them, spur conversation, be a conversation starter, and not necessarily about real estate, but just about life in Orlando, things you love to do. Angela, you're passionate about College Park, CPK, right? So get out there and get in the community and look at some events that are going on in CPK and just get involved. It's that type of stuff that'll help you too.
That's absolutely right. I mean, challenge yourself. How many conversations can you have in a day outside the office, and how many conversations can you have in a day on your computer, on social media? See, count them. So can you have 20 today? Can you have 50? Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, is finding conversations to have, either instigating conversations. Just take Facebook, for example. Get in there and post something, post a question, post a video, post something, try to get some responses back, and then engage with those people who are either liking or who are commenting on your post. That takes a little bit of skill and playing around, right? And some of us are good at that, and some of us are, I think my maximum, amount of comments from a post is probably like 25. That's probably not that great. So if I'm only generating, 5 to 10 comments on a post, I better start looking for other ways to engage in conversation. So let me look at other people's posts and start engaging in, with their posts and commenting back and forth. So that's what we're talking about. So if you can just start those conversations, that's how you build your sphere right there.
I like Bradley just commented, his latest listing came from him selling a flower arrangement at a yard sale. They remembered him because the flowers are on their table and they see it each and every day. So he's going to make more flower arrangements and sell them. What a great idea. Just make sure they're relentless gold in there, right? So that they remember Century 21. So, and Rose, it's a challenge for me. That's why I've been looking at other people posts. There you go. Right. Go out there and and look and see. I mean, I do that too with Facebook business pages. You can actually watch through your insights other pages. So I follow a lot of other pages, and I look to see other real estate agents and brokers and offices, and see which of their posts are getting the most engagement, and is there a specific trend in that type of post. And then that's what kind of drives me and what we're posting to make sure we're increasing that engagement.
And Kevin did say something that's very, very important here. So that is, don't think about real estate in business all the time. Be interesting. The most important thing for driving conversations is being interesting in whatever way you're interesting. I can tell you from my experience, my highest generating post on Facebook came from a video I created about my garage. And I've had a lot of thoughts about this. I think where I'm interesting right now in my life is as a dad in his garage playing with his kids and setting up my garage and my environment in my house to be a place where to develop and be creative with my boys. I got more responses on that one little video that I did of my garage where I have my my kids Nerf guns. Oh my God, everybody loves. I've got a wall of Nerf guns, and it basically went viral in my sphere, right? So just find what's interesting to you, and that's going to come off. Your enthusiasm about that particular thing is going to generate enthusiasm in others. Enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm. So be enthusiastic about something, and you're going to be interesting, and people are going to want to do business with you because of that.
Yeah, you're speaking of, I remember that video. It was good. Mike Puma, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for C21 Beggins, he's doing something really cool and creative, which, again, it's not about real estate, but people are loving it. It's the Puma Boys, and he has 2 little boys. I think they're maybe like 6 and 9 or something like that, even if that old. And every Friday they go on YouTube and Facebook Live, and they've been predicting the winners of all the NFL games, because one of his boys wants to be a sportscaster on ESPN when he grows up. So they've been doing it. And then, of course, the next week it's, the kids ragging on the dad when they got one right and he didn't. And the comments and the posts that he's getting is great in your sphere. So, and everybody knows that, Mike's at Century 21. So if they're thinking about buying or selling, the first person that's going to come to mind is Mike, because of the Puma Boys football prediction videos.
That's right. And because those videos are creating trustworthiness, credibility with his sphere. It goes back to, the statistic here. What do they care about the most? And 61%, they want to trust the real estate agent. And that's you. And that comes from being interesting, being enthusiastic with whatever you're into, not just business.
One question came in from Rose, like, what's the best time to post on Facebook? Rose, that came from Angelin. It's different for every page, and it's different for every day, right? So we manage, I think, 7 or 8 now, agents' Facebook posts, and you'll notice that every day the posts that we are posting, say on Facebook, they're not at the same time. Those posts, most of them, in the past week, if I've posted to your Facebook page, I didn't do it at that time. It was all pre-planned and pre-scheduled based on an algorithm. The software that we use analyzes your audience and posts it at the most optimal time for engagement. So that's kind of high level, but it's going to be different. So don't worry about the most optimal time so much. If it's you posting your content, focus on, like Jason's talked about, the most engaging content, right? Focus more on relating with your audience versus selling to them, and you'll win every time. So any other questions? Go ahead, Clara.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
Hey, Clara, good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to see what your idea was as far as going out, meeting people, having those conversations versus, working your customer database. How do you manage the time to get that done? Because as Kevin said, I've actually been coming in every day, making sure I work my database, but I haven't been able to get out as much to actually meet people and have that conversation to keep adding. How do you work that?
Well, I tell you, from experience, last year I was out basically um, on the street, so to speak. I was building a house, so I was in between homes, and so I had temporary housing, right? And it wasn't the most ideal for working at home. And I don't have a corporate office here, right? I live in Orlando, so I work out of my house here. I've got to get out of the house, especially if, you know, if I was in your shoes as a realtor generating business, I would get out of the house.
Mhm.
So pretty much every day I would go work from the Einstein Bagels down the street from my house, so I can kind of keep my eye on the house as it was under construction, which I needed to do. And I met so many people at Einstein Bagels doing the same thing as I was doing, and I would see them every day, or I'd see them once a week, coming to the same place, and they were doing it for the reasons that you guys should be doing it, is that get out of the house,
Mhm.
go have a schedule, have a routine where you run into the same people.
Okay.
It can be the gym, it can be Einstein Bagels, Panera, it can be church, it can
Starbucks.
be, yeah, there's, get out there, get on a schedule to join an organization. For me, I'm going to soccer practice. And there's certain soccer practices where there's more parents there. I mean, and then you're just making the rounds, talking to people. Hey, what's going on? And you always mix in the question about, do they know anybody who wants to buy or sell real estate? Half of the time they're asking us, though. We're realtors, we're the go-to people. So I would say make a routine and stick to it, and make sure you work those opportunities into your schedule on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Very cool. Good
Thanks,
questions.
man.
Good questions. Any other ones? We're running low on time. Got about 9 minutes before the hard stop. But any other questions? Or I'm loving the dialogue. Delissa, I'm going to unmute you. So go ahead. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, because earlier you said Workplace is only available in the U.S., which is a Facebook thing, not a Century 21 thing. But does that include Puerto Rico as well, or is Puerto Rico not a part of Workplace?
Good question, Delissa. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Offices in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
I think we do have an office or two in Puerto Rico. Yeah, I know we do. I've looked at that before, but I need to refresh my memory on that.
Okay. Thank you.
The other way to do it, though, so with Christine in Celebration, she, the Russian group has their own Facebook group. So, and I get stuff from their feed every day. So you might have to go out and look for those kinds of opportunities on social media with, foreign Century 21 groups.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the things, Jason, I don't know if anybody heard of the game. It's called Golf Clash on iOS, at least. It's my favorite new game to just give my mind a break. So I've started a Century 21 clan on there, and I already have like 6 other agents and brokers that have joined it. And one guy, I'm not even sure what language he's speaking. I need to Google it today. He joined last night asking a question. I'm like going, I have no clue. So got to check that out. But yeah, so we have our own little group here on, and we're number 67 in the world right now on Score. So there's something I'd like to do, have fun and relax. And it's a stupid, fun little game, but it's very
This is
popular.
golf. Do I need an invitation to that, or can I just?
If you're on the game, I should be able to see you because it's linked to my Facebook. So are you on Golf Clash?
Never heard of it.
Dude, it's fun. It's addictive. I hate to tell you, but yeah. So check it out. And I mean, that's just another stupid example, right, of a way to build your network especially with Century 21, and leverage I like to say the gold to gold referrals that turn to green, right? Because you leverage that network. And that's probably, for me, one of the biggest reasons I wanted us to join this franchise is there's 127,000 other gold, people out there, and we can work those goal to goal transfer or referrals. And it's amazing, right? But you have to get out. It's like any tool. If you leave it inside that toolbox, it's not going to work. You have to take it out and actually work it. And that, even though that's reaching out to offices, if, call the British offices, call offices, like we have Vanessa who speaks Mandarin, contacting those offices overseas where the primary language is Mandarin, and introducing yourself. That's the type of stuff that you need to do. Get it out and work it.
And find out where people are moving from in the States. We know New York, right? We know the Midwest. They love to move to Orlando. So find those offices, absolutely, and build those relationships. Definitely.
All right, well, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more. Is there a website, or does Aura or NAR have the statistics on what you were just talking about, where people are coming from to Florida, to Orlando?
I think if we dug a little deeper in the 2018 home buyers and home sellers profile, well, good question. Good question. We'd have to look into that, but I know it's out there.
Okay.
I will put on my list to call FAR today and find out.
Thanks, boss.
Don't boss? No, come on now. All right, any other questions? Rose, stop laughing. That's not nice.
Oops.
Laughing at me.
Not muted.
And by the way, right now, I mean, you call up to New York or, the Northeast or Midwest, they love to talk about the weather. So, I mean,
Yes. I love to joke when
conversation to have.
I used to work for a management company, and we had a condo hotel that we were selling here in Orlando, and all the buildings were like nice. It was Key West style, all these pastel colors. We're flying out. We went to sell in Chicago in the heart of February. We landed. It was cold, dark, cloudy, rainy, and we were selling like 2-bedroom apartments, basically. As an apartment complex that converted, and the developer was selling these things for like $300,000. And we're like, this is going to be a slam dunk. They sold like 100 in 3 hours at the expo, because we just had all these beautiful pictures of palm trees and everything. And they were like, I'm ready. Where do I sign? So, this is a great time to market Florida real estate up north. So, any other questions? Anyone? All right, well, we are 4 minutes in. I appreciate everyone joining. It's been a great day. Don't forget, Friday morning we have Power Hour. Also, next week we do have our Momentum Huddles for the first Wednesday of the month. Hopefully everybody will be here for that. And then next Tuesday, we have the one, the only, the legendary, she's just a superstar in the Century 21 world. I think she outranks Mike Meadler. So Mike answers to Jody. So Jody will be here, trying to get her to jump in. She's not arguing with me. That's kind of
I'm like waiting for you to announce who the speaker is.
So before Mike makes any decisions, Mike calls Jody.
Jody who? Jason. I just want to say, Jason, that was awesome.
Yes.
Statistics. I love the book that you shared. That is spot on. That was some amazing information, Jason.
Thanks, Jody.
Yeah, amazing job. I've been getting some private chat messages, Jason. Great job. It's all about, knowing the data, and so that way you can have a great plan. So if you don't know the data, your plan will suck. So, and Jody, that sucks for you because you have really big shoes to fill next week.
Yeah, I hope I don't get sick or anything. And
you will not. If I have to drive to Lakeland and shove a camera in your face,
I don't know if I can follow that, Jason.
I'll pay you later, Jody. I'm just counting you first.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Don't forget, if you need anything, let us know. We're here for you and for your success. So get out there, be relentless, and make it a great day. Take care, everyone.